Hello world! Patricia, O'Connor, and Frida, Reba, Darcy here. And today on the Bonsai balcony, it's actually, we're cheating the light a tad bit. The timers turned our lights off about an hour ago, and I fired them back up to do this post that we're doing now. What we're framed up on is, as you probably already know, my bald cypress compilation, and aren't those colors something? This is going to be a three-parter, and on this three-parter, during this three-parter, we're going to defoliate, and then we're going to go through and make choices and selection and prune back on all of these branches. That'll probably be show number 2. And then show number 3, we will break out the heavy tools and do a slight amount of carve back on some of this to clean it up, to get ready to move on to our final ramification. So, defoliating a bald cypress, especially this time of year, is probably one of the easier gigs. It's there's not a lot to it. Just as kind of simple as we're off and running. It's really I'm not one to, a lot of people will defoliate their bald cypress whenever they go into a little summer dormancy in July. I probably was told why they do that, but I don't remember offhand. I don't do that. I would worry about that robbing energy from my tree. If it wants to go into dormancy, and if the foliage gets a little ratty looking, it might do that. That's on it. When it comes out of that, if it wants to put out a second flush to aid with its photosynthesis, it has in the past done that too, and we go right along with that. So, but I'm not one to do that. I'm not one that's a member of the Defoliate Your Bald Cypress on the 4th of July Club. If that's something people still do. The good side of this is I could just let all of this stuff fall off, or I could just not worry about it at all and leave it on there. What's the good side to we'll start with what's the good side to removing it? Well, the good side to removing it is it's step 1 of several steps we're going to be taking. And after I defoliate it, I'm going to reduce it down to 3 trunks, basically, with a whole lot of sticks protruding out of it. And it'll be a lot easier to go back and make branch selection choices when I'm looking to balance. It'll be a lot easier to cut that back in a very balanced kind of way when I'm not looking, when everything isn't hidden behind foliage. Behind this apartment complex, there's beach, but behind and beside it, there is a retired Navy base, and there is also a very large landing strip airport that was once a military airport. There is like a landing strip out there that's space shuttle size. They could probably set down anything out there. And sometimes you hear them have motorsport days out there, or you'll hear people do auto rallies or whatever that is. Autocross, I think is maybe. Anyway, I never minded that. I used to love the motorsports. Like I said, there's not a whole lot around in bonsai that's easier to do than to defoliate a bald cypress in fall. And like I was saying earlier about the good and bad side to it, the good side to it is that it cleans everything up so that I will be able to very easily make my branch selection, and it'll be very obvious when we're looking at all these sticks which ones should stay, which ones should go. We'll be able to, you know, clearly see everything pretty much just laid out there in front of us. And the bad side to it is, and it's mostly superficial, this is the last I get to see of my bald cypress beauties with foliage on them until next spring. And between now and then, we're going to do a couple of, you know, fairly big things. Not to scare anybody, but that trunk work, that woodwork that we have going, I'm not, you know, I'm kind of doing this. If I wanted to, this could be 1 hour long. This could be like 1 hour long live show. And we could defoliate this, and then we could cut everything back, and then I could break out the toys, and we could go to town on it. But while I'm defoliating this tree, what I'm really doing is kind of getting my head back in the game. We've been talking about other trees and doing other things for so long that it's totally fine that I start off this way and then I go off to the other thing that I know. The thing that I don't know as well is carving on trees. That's the thing that I've only done a half a dozen times. This part, I've already done this. This is not new, and I've already know what risks involved, and there are none. I'm basically removing the stuff that's already done for this year. If I were not, you know, there are probably some mistakes I could make with the, when we break out the tools, that'll be a chainsaw. It won't be the biggest chainsaw you've ever seen. It's going to be a battery operated steel chainsaw, and that's a brand name, Steel. And they usually make the more conventional petrol powered chainsaws, but this is like a glorified pruner or hedger, I suppose. I bet it would carve a turkey like nobody's business. Probably just gave somebody an idea. Anyway, that's kind of, when I do that, I want to be concerned about not doing anything that causes us more work. You know, I mean, what we do here is hopefully not permanent, because that's the idea, is to we want to leave less marks, and we want to make sure that the grow over on our trunk heals in a way that when it's got all that rollover is all done its thing, that it looks natural, and it doesn't look like a cut wedge with the wood saw that some bark has grown over it. That's basically the idea. And some of them, that'll be just basically me taking out the high spot in the center of that wedge cut where I didn't clean it back as well as maybe it needed to be, because I trunk splitters kind of make that difficult to do. I suppose it would be easy just to go to town on that with, it might even be the grinder is the way to go, and I don't really have a grinder. What I have is a drill / impact, and I have a sanding wheel for that, for which I could put a grinding wheel equivalent pad on, so I can pretty well just change the shape of all those cuts that way if I don't like, or if I get in there with my new toy, my chainsaw, and I don't like the way it looks, I'll for the sake of a video, I won't certainly feel like I have to hang with that. But I think that's the right tool to take down. And I also, you can kind of see that these guys have a chop here, and where this chop is, the rollover that's working right here is large, and it's probably, you know, that purple rollover, that's kind of the way that bark looks. That is likely to be pencil size, I would say, and it's protruding out. So to my way of thinking, that whole edge could be reclaimed. But I also have to be very cognizant of not killing this vein, or we shut the show off and we have to start all over. That would set us back. That would set us back a long time if that happened. That would make for a different tree. Easy trees to defoliate. So yeah, now that's pretty much what's going to go on there. And you can already see all of these. Now we have all of these spears, and you see all of those bumps. All of those bumps. It looks like it's got cold and just got goosebumps. Those are all bud sites. Each and every one of those in their own right. Could be a leaf, could be a limb, could be, you know, whatever the tree wanted that to be. They can go and have some weird thing happen where every one of those bumps will produce a shoot. So I don't know whether it's some kind of shock or something that would cause that, but I've seen them that I'm like, wow, that thing looks like it needs a shave or something. It just looks bearded once all those tiny little bumps flush out without just all of them. It's kind of a weird look when you see that, I think. I wonder if that was like the result of pruning, or did it get freaked out, or did it get too hot or too dry, or what happened that made it do that. But it looks like it always struck me as something that a tree would do that was trying to counter the effects of something, hedge its bet against, you know, something. Anyway, enough about that. I've almost got this guy bare. It's got a little bit more left to go on here, but not an enormous amount. Now that I'm standing here in front of the Trident Maple, which is on cinder blocks, I think I'm going to take it down from here. I wanted to raise it up to make it easier to rotate it around. I don't think that's the answer. I think that makes it too high, though. I don't like it way up there. But we did a prune back on the last video, I think, of this Trident Maple. And just as I was wrapping that up, I was looking at where we had left the link, and I had thoughts about that, but I didn't want to change it right then, right there at the end of the show. I thought, well, that could have actually been quite a bit shorter. Also, I don't always tend to act on everything I think of during the show, because you can always do that later. One. Second, sometimes you don't think things all the way through when you're shooting a video. It's like, oh, I could do this, and that could be a great idea that leads to a fantastic ending, and you just transform the tree and everybody thinks you're awesome. Or that could have been not your best idea, and you were kind of caught up in the moment. And if you go through, you know, and you're about to just turn your video into that. So I kind of, whenever I saw that and thought, well, that probably should have been a lot shorter, I didn't do anything except think, well, it's a lot easier to make it shorter than it is to go back and look at it and say, oh, I wish now I have to go back and make that longer again. Right, I think that's one tree down. Now, when I'm done with these three little cuties, I won't have these trees and I won't have their foliage to look at again until spring. That's the downside to this. That's the sad part to this. Getting back to the Trident Maple, I set down my scissors over there. When I'm done with this, I'll probably do a last little bit of snip on that guy. That'll be 2 minutes. When I did, also, one of our viewers goes, yeah, I think you left that kind of long, especially since it has that growth all already going in one direction. Totally get that, and I was kind of thinking the same thing. So yes, Elizabeth, I'm gonna probably knock all of that back to like 1 or 2 inches long here in just a few minutes. This seemed like this would take longer because this was the bigger tree. So far, I'm not seeing that. This guy also, this being our centerpiece, it had a straight across flat cut when I got it, and it already had sprouts out here, although they weren't these sprouts. They have both changed twice since I started this Live and Learn. I just want to say I'm totally happy with everything the way we have going now. Everybody gets to stay as far as I'm concerned. But it's now a twin trunk via saw. I put this chop in here, and now those are going to, both of these little sides are each going to be responsible for adding ramification. I mean, yeah, well, adding the shape of the trunk. Each one of these tops will be responsible for half. Is where I'm going with that. And it's going pretty good. It's not necessarily, I don't think, going any faster or slower than if it were one bigger top trying to do all of that. But I'm happy with the way this grouping is going. And this is one of those bonsai projects where I never ever felt like one of these days when I'm happy with this tree, this will be fun. This has never not struck me as beautiful and or totally worthwhile. At no point have I ever bored with these guys, or at no point have I ever looked up from my own couch and went, nah. The wisteria down here is all grabby. It's very, very grabby. That's kind of their thing though, but they should learn their manners. It's grabby wisterias. Okay, that was one small one, one big one, and now our last tree. These guys, these two small trees, both came from a bonsai supplier in northern Louisiana, and he would go out and collect stuff like hackberry, I think, and bald cypress, and dwarfs, pygmy cypress, some other species that are known, you know, stuff besides the bald cypress. So this tree and this tree were shipped from Louisiana, and they both already had their chops in their trunks, and their leaders selected. One of them had a shipping snafu. Resilient trees. I don't even remember now which one. One of these, this tree or this tree, one of these trees came in weeks and weeks after it had already been considered AWOL, after the shipper, not the person, but the shipping company, had already paid out the insurance on it, after I had already negotiated a new price for its replacement and got it sent. One day, out of the blue, there came a knock at the door, and when I went to the door, there was nobody there, but there was a very foul-smelling, looked like it had been wet for a long time, but no longer, box that was pretty hammered, looked like a accordion kind of a look to it, and I threw it in the wagon. I took a little peek inside one corner, and I threw it in my little wagon and took it downstairs because I knew it was full of popcorn, you know, that styrofoam popcorn crap. And I have pictures of it. Down at the dumpster, the top was broken in like 3 places, and all the foliage was wilted, and it had been lost for months. It had literally been lost for months. And what I wrote the guy, or I emailed the guy and said, hey, guess what just showed up? And he goes, that's crazy. He goes, totally defoliate it and put it in the shade, and see what it does. And when I did that, it flushed back out, and it never skipped a beat. Thank goodness. So I was going to originally do this trio with the large tree, I think this tree, and a tiny tree, like, you know, like I ordered from